I agree with you. Somebody just said if open adoption isn't legally binding, the adoption shouldn't be either. I am in full agreement with you. There's absolutely no way that it should be legal on one side and not the other because that's what creates the uneven power dynamic. So, I mean, yes, at the very basic core of it, yes, it should be legal on both sides, enforceable on both sides.
I agree with that for sure.
I want you to answer the question.
Oh, you got to ask them.
So my question was, what does a birth mother do if their child can't physically, or if they can't physically or mentally take care of their child, but they don't want to give it up for adoption because they know how terrible adoption is, like in some situations?
Oh, damn.
Maybe they can co-parent with somebody they feel safe with, love, and trust.
You like that answer?
Yeah. But what
I was gonna say, or reach out to somebody.
They don't want to lose a relationship with them. Like they can't take care of like a child.
That's what they do. That's what she's saying. So open adoption is where a lot of times you can be a part of your child's life, but then there's somebody else who's going to do the day-to-day parenting, but you're still able to be a part of their life and see them grow up and be involved in it. Do you like that answer?
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Catelynn and Tyler are doing a podcast now, and they're having a lot of different types of people on there. And we're both going up in a couple weeks to do it. But yeah, I have been telling them for months now that you need to be on there as well. So
I'm so excited for y'all. Oh my God. Y'all give so much like really in-depth details. I remember like, just going through everything at the very beginning with Reunion. And I was so intrigued with, I don't know if y'all ever picked up on it, but I was always asking like, so when y'all were like 10, 11, 12, like what did you think about like your biological, like I was just so curious of that age bracket because of my daughter. And I kept listening to how like y'all would talk about yourselves at that age. And I was like, okay, like take note, like I should be doing more of this, or like, okay, wait, they said this type of thing. So maybe I should be leaning into this more. And like, I don't know, it was really interesting. So I think that this is great that y'all are going to be on that podcast and like kind of bridging that big old gap with everybody about pinning everybody with biological side against the adoptee side, even though we're all on the same side. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I think this is great. Y'all are going to do amazing.
I think it's really important also for the general public to see that a lot of adoptees like are pro birth mother. Like I am very pro birth mother. And I think that people think that adoptees have a problem with birth mothers, be like a vendetta or something, because they think that we should. And I don't feel that way at all. Like I will support first moms all day long. And I think that it's really important to get out and to be able to like explain that dynamic to people. So I think that it's really important that they're doing this podcast and giving this voice to everybody.
I agree. I think that's
one of the.
Oh, sorry.
Go
Go
ahead.
Go for it.
No, you're fine. Go.
I was just gonna say, I think that's such a good point to like talk in depth on how we're both kind of pinned up against one another, but in the end, it's like we're still kind of rooting for for each other, like on the other side, because I mean, I feel like society just does want us to be like, well, you're on this team and you're on this team, and in the end, adoptive parents are like the winners of it all because they get to choose the narrative and silence or use a voice or whatever. And so it's like, I feel like it's just so empowering for adoptees to like truly speak up. And like, I always feel like so like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like whenever like adoptees kind of like pump up our voices on this side of things, because like, like I think both of us have all experienced being silenced or told to be grateful or to like minimize ourselves or to conform or to just, move on, or like, it's not trauma, like it's not that bad or whatever. So we're just so used to that. But in the end, like we can both say how we really feel, and like everything really does pinpoint to adoptive parents with how society puts them up there so high. And like, and another thing, like I love that Brenda, oh my gosh, Brenda, I love you so much. You already know all of this, but it's just like listening to Brenda and like how she's like trauma informed and continually practicing that journey of learning more things, because as life goes on, as more thoughts happen, as you become different ages, as like the world evolves, like so should your learning of trauma. Like everything is constantly evolving. Like you can't be stagnant. You can't, be stationary. Like you have to constantly grow and develop. And so like then hearing like on Brenda's side, and I'm like, there's probably, oh gosh, there's a handful of adoptive parents that I truly do feel like they just like get it, like I'm like, okay, this makes more sense that way. And so like hearing Brenda talk about things, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like, yes. I'm like, you just make sense when you say those things. Like, oh, I agree with that, or like, oh, I'm constantly in my head, and I'm always telling her, I'm like, oh, I wish my daughter's adoptive parents had that same like thought link, that brain, like, just I wish that they would think those things, and unfortunately, like, that hasn't been the case. And I'm just like, oh, your little man is just going to be growing up with such like information and like a safe place to express themselves, and to like know that there's transparency and conversations of all kinds can be welcomed in the home. And at the end, you're going to be holding his hand. You're going to be sitting with him. You're going to be helping him navigate these emotions that he probably doesn't know, but you're able to navigate those things because of experiences that you've heard of and that you've been involved in. And so like you're growing with him, but you're like so many years far in advance to where he's going to like start off a lot earlier in life than waiting till he's 18 to know things, or waiting till he's like 20 something or 30, or, you know. I just think it's amazing that like there are people who are using the voices that we have, the experiences that we're feeling. And like, for the longest time, I think I really felt like I was just so alone. It was a very, it's been, and it is an isolating experience for all of us to a large extent. And, you know, when I was going through my stuff, like I thought I was the only one who had this experience, the only one who felt this way, this only one who received treatment from society. Like I must have been like the worst or whatever. Why? And then I start listening and I start talking and I start engaging. And I was like, holy cow. I was like, how come I'm on this side of the world with this age bracket and this was my experience, but like these other people, whether they're adoptees or other parents like myself, like birth parents, like they're also experiencing the same thing. And I was like, and I just feel like it just created this unity where we can all come together and share that same thought and share that same experience, and then we can like amplify one another. I don't know, I love the ideal of people coming together. And like I know I talk so much about adoptive parents and I don't ever really mean it in like the nastiest, rudest way. I feel like Brenda and other adoptive parents who think similar to Brenda in that sense, who are listening and amplifying those type of things, like I feel like that is now my new standard for adoptive parents. If you don't hit that adoptive parent 101 baseline, then you are like, you should not adopt. Like if you can't even touch any basic information that Brenda can like spew off her tongue, then it's like, why are you even here? Oh, you're here for you. You're not here for a child. You're not here for a child's family. Like you're here for yourself. And I know everybody's situations and things, they're all very different and very unique. And it's just like, I feel like even as different and as unique as it can be, you can still be baseline, wonderful adoptive parent 101 instead of this normalized, crappy adoptive parent 101 that's just normalized. Like, I still can't get over, I'm rambling, I'll stop after this, but like, I still can't get over when like, you know, like from my experience, when I'll tell people like, oh yeah, you know, they promised an open adoption and they closed it and then this and then that. And instead of them hearing like, oh my gosh, like, they literally lied to you, or they took your child and they didn't give you any information, like they did all these and they continued. Oh my, instead of them hearing that, all they hear is you didn't love your baby, that's why you didn't keep them, obviously you're not the better parent, and they're the real parents and they're the adoptive parents. So they like, it's just like everything centers adoptive parents. And I feel like that's why I don't want to stop talking, because I feel like all of our voices should continue to amplify our children's like adoptees. And like, yeah, I mean, y'all are the ones that had no say in anything. And I think it's absolutely terrible that like all of us to a large extent, like we participated in that system. And once you recognize how terrible that system is, oh my gosh, you need to speak up. Like you need to figure out how to make sure nobody else participates in this, because oh my gosh, there's so many gross, nasty, terrible, dark sides about adoption that nobody wants to talk about, all because it'll crap on adoptive parents, and adoptive parents have been glorified for too long. And like this doesn't even talk about, I don't know, there's so many other things, but I just remember everybody has been so focused on adoptive parents and how they're beautiful and wonderful. And I love that Brenda is speaking from the adoptive parent side with grace and understanding and openness and an open ear and just being open-minded to like changes and stuff. And I'm just like, man, your kid is just like going to be so ahead of everybody. Like I don't know if
I'm gonna pause you because you keep being my hype girl and I love you so much, but I mess up every single day. Like every single day I mess up, and what keeps me like on the positive track is that I have this community, right, of natural parents, of adoptees, where I can phone a friend and say, like, hey, I did this today. Is this okay? And I have real people in his corner that tell me, you know what? That probably wasn't the best way to handle that. Next time this comes up, why don't you try this? And so, like, having this distance between the different parties in our community doesn't help adoptees. We need to be working together to, educate each other, to help support the little adoptees of today and prevent more adoptions of tomorrow.
And I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that for adoptive parents, the goal at the end of the day should be what's best for the child. Like, it's adoption should always be about what's best for the adopted child. So, like, if you're unable to hear the things that Brenda's saying and you're unable to receive them in a positive way, then you're not doing what's best for your child. And you're doing a disservice to them. So, like, we really just have to trying to get through to adoptive parents and making them understand that it's not about them is probably the biggest feat that we really come across, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wanted to say something to Siobhan really quick too about how she said, like, she's not going to stop speaking about everything, and I hope you would know, but like when you talk about just the feeling of feeling like, am I the only one going through this, feeling so alone and stuff, like, you were the one person that helped me not feel alone, and you accepted me with open arms and helped me and talked to me and gave me advice and all of the things. Like, definitely, adoptees need to do what they are doing, and birth parents also need to do what they're doing, because it does help people not feel alone. And you definitely helped me a lot during this whole time.
And let me also add that I think the problem with adoptees and birth parents in any realm is I see a lot of adopted people, when they start to finally come out of the fog of everything, they're angry. Anger is the first and go-to emotion for the vast majority of us. And it's because it's a displaced feeling. It's the first emotion, but underneath, once we peel it all back, there's something else. You're hurt, you're whatever. So a lot of times I see adopted people, they get so angry at first mothers who do come on these apps and start talking about their feelings. And it's displaced anger. A lot of times it's displaced anger, but also I will say there are some first parents that are so in the fog of their own trauma of relinquishment that they are unsafe for adopted people to be in community with. This is where I follow very few first mothers and first fathers, because a lot of times they are still so wrapped up in their own trauma of relinquishment that they're not hearing us. They're seeing their own plight over the plight of the child. And I will stand 10 toes down that the person most affected by adoption will always be the adopted child. Second to that is obviously going to be our biological family in some way, but they can't get past that long enough to hear us sometimes. And the thing about Brenda that a lot of us absolutely adore and fawn over is that she actively listened to our voices. She was a silent listener for so long that helped us to heal.
Yep.
It helped us to find our voice and say what we wanted to say. And she has been great at letting us say the hard things, because I know it was probably rough when you first joined TikTok, because I'm sure, we unfortunately, one thing I've noticed is the swarm that happens. Videos get sent massively to everyone, and then all of a sudden within an hour the comment section is full of adopted people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I mean, and it takes somebody like Brenda to be like, look, this isn't about me.
Mm-hmm.
This is about the child in my home, and I'm just going to sit and listen. And that makes for a great adoptive parent in the end. It also makes for a great first mother and first father in the end, is for them to put aside how they feel about their situation and center the person most affected. Even if we aren't the most affected in their situation, we still, hands down, in adoption, will still be the most affected.
I have said some pretty untrauma informed things, and it was some lady named Lisa. I can't find her on Facebook, but if I could, I would tell her thank you. She was an adoptive parent, and she handed me my ass. Like, she ripped me to shreds, and I was just like, I don't understand. I'm trying to help. And I said that to a foster parent friend, and they were like, hey, why don't you join this group and just listen to adoptees for a minute? And then I was like, oh God, what? And I just listened. I listened for like a year and a half and said nothing and no space. I just listened until it made sense or started to make sense, you know? Um, and that's what I encourage anyone outside who is a kept person. You don't understand adoption? Listen. Listen to adoptees. Listen to natural parents. Hear their experiences. You will understand.
And whatever you do, if you're a kept person, please don't argue with our experience and please don't tell us how we should feel, because that is literally the number one biggest pet peeve in our community, is being told how we should feel about our adoption.
That part. How are you going to tell me to feel a certain way about something that you personally have never experienced, and your second cousin's baby, whoever that was adopted into your family, it's not the same, boo. It is not the same. You will never
They always
understand
know
it
a
from the
guy.
inside out. There, I know, huh? I have a black friend.
They always have a black friend, always. Without fail. And I'm like, and the funny thing is, and what I always tell people is that even when even now, even today, I guarantee you some of my friends would tell you that I had a great adoption and that I'm pro adoption, because I don't really talk about it in my like normal day-to-day life. And if they're not on here listening to me talk about it, they would have no idea how I feel about it. And they would probably say, hey, she had a great life. Because you know what? Like, I grew up in a wealthy family and went to private school, and like on the surface, everything looked great. But like there was a lot more to it than that. But they didn't know that, and I didn't express that, and I internalized a lot of my own feelings. So you can't really ever speak for an adoptee because you don't know how they're feeling, because half times they don't even know how they're feeling.
Well, and our feelings change being adopted. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like the more that you come to understand what adoption truly means to you and your experience, like, it really does start to change how you speak, how everything about all of it goes. You know, I even just the 3 years that I've done social media talking, I have completely like went back on older stuff, and I'm like, cringe,
Yep.
cringe. That came out of my mouth.
All right, there's a birth mom here that wants to ask. Hold on, I'm gonna let you in, Samantha. That wants to ask Catelynn a question, and I'm gonna let her in, and then she's gonna drop out. She said. So here we go, Samantha. I just gave you an invite. Did you see it? Let's let her ask her question real quick, and then. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Good. Welcome.
No, I just wanted to pick her brain kind of a little bit because I'm a birth mom to the daughter that is around the same age as hers, and I've seen a couple of episodes where she's dealing with some of the stuff that I'm dealing with. My 4-year-old is starting to ask questions about her sister. She'll be 15 in October. And she'll sit there, and I've been an open book about my daughter. I placed her up for adoption, and I'm like, is this the right age? She'll be 5 in June to have this conversation, or should I put off? Because she keeps going, where is Sissy? I don't know.
I just honestly I went into it raising all of the children that all the children that I was raising, that I am raising, I just went into it as like it's just a normal thing. We have pictures of Carly all over the house. She's always known as sister, like, and I always explain it to like a child level. I remember when Nova was like 5 years old, and we went into this like her piano, lesson, and she was talking to this random stranger lady that I'd never met in my life, and she was literally telling this whole lady about my whole adoption journey and my story. And so I've always just gone into it, always being open and honest. And absolutely, I don't think there's any right age to have the conversation. I think if you raise them just knowing about their sister or their sibling that is out in the world, then it's just normal to them. And I've just always been like that. I mean, we have pictures everywhere in our hallway, everywhere. Even Veda, who's 5, she goes, "Hey, that's Carly, my sister." And I'm like, "Yep, that's your sister." And and then their questions change over the years, and they start asking more questions, and I'm just honest with them and I explain it. And that's just how I've always done it. Is that the right way? I don't know, but it feels right to me.
I think when it comes to adoption, open honesty is the best route to go. Like from day one, like you don't ever like not tell them something. Like if adoption's if that's the situation that you're in, like you're not gonna damage a child by telling them the truth about their sibling and where their sibling is and why they're there at any age. It's just better. You just have to use age appropriate terms and age appropriate language when you're explaining it to them. But I feel like I don't ever, like, looking back, I always knew that I was adopted, but I also know plenty of people that were told later in life, and it's so incredibly damaging finding out that kind of information when you're older and you have to process it. Because if you've always known, there's no moment where you have to process it. You've been processing it the whole time because you've always known. Like, I think that giving people like a moment in time where they remember finding out such a big, huge, traumatic amount of information, I don't know. I think that they should always know, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why I've always just been in it. And when I a birth mom, whatever, a young birth mom, I never truly thought the impact it was going to have on my other children. Like, that never clicked when I made the decision a long time ago. But man, the impact that it does have on all of the children involved is very intense. And that's why I'm just always upfront, truthful, and I just explain everything to the age appropriate level, and I let them drive the conversation, and that's all I would definitely not be a good adoption counselor. I would not want to be a good adoption counselor.
You're muffled.
I think we're losing you, Kate.
Again?
There you are.
Oh, somebody said that I would make a great adoption counselor. I said, no, thank you. I would not want to be an adoption counselor.
That part. Why?
Guys,
Why
nobody on this
want
panel
to
is pro-adoption.
participate
Nobody's adoption counseling.
Yeah. Ugh. Why would I want to go into an unethical industry?
I wanted to add a couple of things to what Caitlin was saying, if that's okay. When it came to like the kid stuff, like, number one, and I completely agree with her, like, you as a society, like, we're not taught that our future children that we may or may not have matter in regards to adoption. We're not taught that. We're not taught that siblings matter. They're just kind of like the silent group put on the side. And as their parents, we're supposed to advocate for them as much as we should for our child who we did relinquish, who was placed for adoption, however you want to phrase that. And so, like, and I agree with everything she said. Like, I feel like if, like, how society says, wait till they're 18 and then you can tell the adopted child all this information. And as a mom on this side of things, like, we look at, like, that's so dumb. Wait 18 years, narrative, all these other things, right? So in my mind, should I parent to make
I think we're losing you, Siobhan.
or just old enough to be, anything other than, like, similar to my daughter's adopted parents? I don't want to be anything like them. And so, oh shoot, y'all can't hear me? Is the reception bad over here?
Yeah, it's coming back.
Oh shoot, okay, I don't know. I'm in a new house, so but so it's just like, I feel that if you give that transparency from day one, you're also teaching your children from day one to be transparent, to talk about things with openness, to not carry secrets, to not, and then, like, the other thing that I think people don't really understand as well, and, like, I'm coming to learn as time has gone on. I stepped outside, hopefully it's a little clearer, is that, like, I feel that how you raise your children is a reflection of you. If you're raising your children in secretiveness, in lack of if you're not having those hard conversations, like it's a reflection of how you are as a parent. And in my mind, I feel like any like blimps on the timeline, any bumps in the road that my children have in regards to how they feel emotionally and stuff like that, I feel like it's just another opportunity for me to sharpen my parenting skills, to learn a new tool to help my child process their emotion. Like we all know children are unable to process and regulate their emotions from a certain age bracket. It's just like my daughters, not even just my daughter's adoptive parents. I feel like adoptive parents in general, when they're not centering children, they're centering their own feelings, and they're thinking it's too hard for our child to understand this information. Like they can't process this, they can't do that. And I'm just like, what? Here I am on the other side. Yes. Here I am on the other side of things where I'm raising her siblings, siblings in general, and I'm teaching them everything from the very beginning, and they're understanding what they can understand. Their process. I feel like you have to give everybody the opportunity. And if you don't, then you're literally depriving people for your own selfishness. And I feel like it just does a disservice for everybody. And like, it was really sad, kind of depressing when, my children that I am parenting, they've known from day one about everything, photos everywhere, experiences. Like we sing happy birthday, we make a cake, we have all of her candles that we use on her birthday. We have like a little spot for her at our table. Like we do things that implement her existence in our home. We manifested her into our home in that sense, right? And so when she got to meet everybody, like she had 12 years of not knowing her siblings' names and things like that. And here's a little 2-year-old, a little 3, a little 4 or 5-year-old who know her name. And I think that was just so like, okay, adoptive parents, are you figuring out that like you could have taught things from the very, very beginning, but you chose to withhold things for what end? You think that it's like adoption's messy, adoption's hard, no matter what. And I feel like if you manage how hard things are by being trauma informed, like you're just gonna have so much more grace in regards to centering all of the kiddos. I don't know. I completely agree about just telling everybody from the very beginning, if I don't want to be a secret, if my daughter shouldn't be a secret, like why should I continue to preach secrecy within my home when that's the number one thing that I don't want, which is what adoption does, kind of practice secrecy. And we all know that's unethical, like we know it's harmful. So why continue that within your own home? That's my take.
Yes. And kids are smarter than what we give them credit for. When you explain it to them as an age appropriate thing, Nova was like, oh, I get it. You didn't have anything and you thought this would be better, and yada, all the things. Like they are so smart.
Oh yeah.
They're super, super smart. I feel like people just chalk it up to like, oh, well, you're a child, you won't get it. And like when people, I think it's like such a weird argument where they're like, they won't understand about the mom-dad situation or the siblings, or they just don't understand adoption. But I'm like, but they'll understand how the world functions. They understand all the names, 50, the states in the United States. They understand why money is like, it's because you teach it to them at a young age so they understand and they grow with it. I didn't understand money when I was little, but they still freaking taught that to me now that I'm older with experience. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, there's so many things that are teachable. And I feel like withholding information that is extremely teachable just does a disservice to everybody, the whole freaking family. It's terrible.
And the other thing is that like I feel like adopted children are way more intuitive, and like we know, like we pay more attention to things just because of our situation. So like we know, you know what I mean? Like we already know what's going on around us. We already know when we're being lied to or when stuff's being withheld from us because we're intuitive and we pay closer attention to things because of the situation that we're in.
I was always, even though obviously I knew I was adopted, I still wanted answers. The answers I was getting from my adoptive parents were so surface level. The whole, oh, she loved you so much, blah, blah, blah. All of those things that don't help us, to hear somebody loved me so much that they tossed me away. What does that teach me about love? But I searched. I looked everywhere. I went through filing cabinets. I went through drawers. Anytime my adoptive parents were gone, I went through everything because I wanted to find out the truth about myself. It's a never ending cycle of trying to find out more information. You know, for a lot of us, we don't have birth stories. We just magically appeared one day. And that's hard. That's so hard to not have this beautiful birth story like you do if you have your own kids. You know, I can tell my son every single detail about the day that he came into this world. Nobody can do that for me.
Yep.
And that it's so traumatizing to know that there are so many parts of my existence I will never, never have. And it's so unfair. Like, who made that choice that my existence was not worthy of it being told from day one?
And that's what I was going to say. Like, that is so unfair to you because you should be able to know all of the things. Like, it just doesn't, I don't know, just the way that some adoptive parents raise these children just blow my mind. And I'll never be able to understand it. I just want to, like, shake some of them.
One thing that really has irked me about the conversation around you and Tyler is how society somehow has an issue with y'all telling your side. As if you're using this child to monetize and XYZ. But at the same time, if Brandon and Teresa had their own platform, it would be full of people commenting how beautiful and wonderful and da 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 and all this stuff is. Like, you can see the glaring difference. Like, why is it that it is okay for these adoptive parents to purchase these children and then bring them online and monetize every aspect of their existence? Like, can you imagine the whole world knowing that you were adopted before you can even comprehend what that word means? Yep. The whole world, like, you know, Bella and Dallin Lamp, what is their last name? Bella and Dallin. That child, they gave the name Story. You gave your child the name Story, and then you proceed to tell her story to the world. She doesn't even know that she's adopted yet.
I can't stand those people. Those people are the bane of my existence.
But people celebrate them. The fact that how celebrated they are for taking this child away from their parents is wild to me. But then the parent, if the parent ever came on and was like, XYZ happened, oh, shut up. You didn't want your child. Right. If I didn't want my child, I wouldn't be on here fighting.
Yeah, and when you talk about, like, the people that speak about us and our story and stuff, it's just weird. Like I was telling Aaron earlier, when I shared the good parts of my story and how amazing it was and how I did the best thing and all of that, like, it was always praised and we were always, like, uplifted in a good light. But it's weird. Once I shifted the narrative and I was like, no, this is really hard for me. As she's getting older, like, it's hard and I struggle and I miss her and it's not easy. Now I'm getting attacked all the time and saying, like, you're breaking boundaries, you're harassing them, all these things. And I'm like, whoa, I'm just speaking about how it's hard for me. But so it's just it totally shifted. And I'm like, this needs to be talked about more. That's what made me, like, a light bulb in my head. I was like, this is off. Like, there is a hard side. It's not all cupcakes and rainbows.
I have to jump off, guys. I've been on for like 4 hours, I just realized. But I actually have to go get one of my kids at school. But I just saw somebody in the comments saying, I am an adoptive parent and I did not purchase my child. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
You 100%.
Yes, you did. Did you
child.
exchange money with an adoption agency? Did you give an adoption agency money and they gave you a baby? Then you purchased your child. You're not paying for services. I literally went and broke down all of the accounting records for adoption agencies. You can very clearly see what you're paying for. You're paying for $200,000 a year salaries for people on their payroll. you're not paying for medical expenses or services that have to do with the actual adoption. So no, you did purchase your child.
Facts.
And
'Cause
if you are a foster, oh, sorry, outspoken, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you look at everything that is purchasing a child, why are the lawyer fees and the medical fees completely separate from that purchasing fee? Like, you
Correct.
purchased the kid.
Correct.
And in foster care adoptions, there is still money exchanged between the state, between multiple different private agencies as well, for the custody transfer of a child. That in and of itself is unethical, and we should all have a problem with that. People
It
should
doesn't
not be
matter if you
profiting
fight
from
for her to
children.
have a relationship with her bio family or not. I'm glad that you do, but your language, Amanda, the reason I didn't let you in the live because you asked 500 times was because your language is super inappropriate. You need to listen to Brenda and other adoptees and other adoptive parents that have actually done the work and figure out how to speak properly to other adoptees. That's one of the reasons why I didn't let you in this live. And I'm glad that you're fighting for a relationship with her bio family. That doesn't mean that you didn't purchase her. One thing has nothing to do with the other. That's all I have to say about that.
And mic drop.
And I gotta go pick up my kids. But you guys, this was so much fun. This was so much fun. I was on here way longer than I was trying to be. Caitlin, thanks for hanging for like 7 hours.
Yes,
Brenda, too. You guys did on this
Oh
whole
yeah, oh
time.
my gosh, this was so good.